It's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. All right, how about a little deja vu all over again here? Hurricane Zeta. Yes, it has re-strengthened to a hurricane bearing down on the Gulf Coast late in the hurricane season, and we ripped through all the names, A to Z, had to start over with Alpha, Beta, what's after Beta? I forget. Right on through to Zeta. Now, if there's another one, I don't know what we do. We start with Roman numerals. Next one will be Hurricane I, and then Hurricane II, and then Hurricane III, and then Hurricane, IV, right? And then Hurricane V. Or we'll name them after the Baldwin brothers. So the next hurricane is Hurricane Alec, and then Hurricane Billy. I forget the other ones. Name them after Kardashians. Hurricane Chloe. Yeah, we ripped through the alphabet and twice now. So no, climate change is not a problem. No. And also in the Deja Vu all over again file, holy hell, Philadelphia, 2 nights now of chaos in the streets because of the police shooting of Walter Wallace Jr. And it's right out of the playbook. We've seen this now. How many times have we seen this? The first couple nights are a train wreck. There's a terrible, unjustified shooting, and if you saw the video of this, come on. There's no arguing this one. So right down predictable lane here. A terrible, unjustified police shooting or killing. Immediate reaction of people rightfully outraged. They hit the streets, they yell, they break things. And we've seen this so many times. We know for a fact, this is not speculation, this is not liberal opinion. We know for a fact that in every case up until now, and we're seeing the same thing, that a great majority, 97%, 98%, 99%, 100% of protesters are peaceful, and there's a very tiny percentage of those who set fires and loot stores and jump on top of police cars like we see in the political ads. And that's a mix. The first couple of nights, there are people who are genuinely angry, and they are it's old-fashioned rioting. Yes, people in the neighborhood throwing rocks, starting fires, looting stores, breaking windows, jumping on police cars. Yes, there's a small number of locals who are just so damn angry that that's how they react. It's to be expected at this point. But also a fact, we know damn well that after the first couple of nights, the violence goes down to almost nothing. It's a reaction the first couple of nights. We also know damn well that a great majority of that violence, the small sliver of violence, most of that is happening from outside agitators, Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, those guys, the white supremacists, agitators, people who want to incite civil war, who want to incite race war. They come in and they raise hell. Okay, here's our chance. Let's go. Put out a Facebook invitation. Let's go do it. Boom. We've been standing by, Mr. President, ready to go, and here we go. We've seen this same playbook dozens of times now. And it's happening as we speak in Philadelphia. And along with that playbook, we get the reaction from the right wing. Headline, White House issues statement on looting in Philadelphia following death of Walter Wallace Jr. So they have nothing to say about the shooting itself. They have nothing to say about the hundreds and thousands of peaceful protesters. No, they have something to say about the looting because it plays to their narrative and it helps them in the oncoming election, which is underway. Let me read a little bit from Fox 29, Philadelphia. As looting and rioting continue for a second night in Philadelphia following the police shooting death of Walter Wallace Jr., the White House said it is prepared to mobilize federal resources upon request to bring the violence to a halt. Playing right into it. In a statement released early Wednesday morning, the Trump administration said the riots, quote, are the most recent consequences of the liberal Democrats' war against the police. So it's all so damn predictable. And it's all so sad. And God forbid if any of this has an impact on the election. Philadelphia, we need you. Everybody out in the streets hooting and hollering and breaking things. I hope you've all voted. I hope you're voting. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I will not judge people who've had enough and start throwing rocks. I will not judge them. I don't care. I don't care. I don't give a good goddamn about a looted store at this point. If you want to loot a Foot Locker, go ahead. I'm really not concerned about that compared to the other problems in this country. Catch the bad guys, round up the agitators, those who want to incite race wars. The people who are genuinely angry are blowing off some steam. After a night or two, it's always over. We've seen it. How many times do we have to see the same thing? And I don't want to be guilty of the same thing others are guilty of. Let's talk about Walter Wallace Jr., a man with a history of mental problems. He's having an episode of some sort. His family and friends call to ask for help. They didn't want police. They wanted help for their family member who was suffering due to his mental health issues. But instead, a bunch of armed police come, ill-trained. For some reason, they don't have stun guns. If you saw the video, Walter Wallace Jr. has a knife, and he's walking, not running, walking toward them. He's got to be at least 15, 20 feet away from the nearest cop, and boom, 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 down he goes. Training, de-escalation. We're not outfitted with stun guns, apparently because of budgetary concerns. Well, we can't afford stun guns, but here's your 38 and all the bullets you need. So multiple cops open fire and just take him down in cold blood. Hell, throw a lasso around him. Get one of your local Philadelphia cowboys, throw a lasso around the guy. There are other ways to deal with this. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about police reform, when we're talking about defunding the police. We're talking about abolishing the police. This never should have happened. Why in the hell did a bunch of cops roll up with their guns when a family calls for assistance because their loved one is having a mental episode? Again, I'm getting tired of apologizing for what we need and what we want. Yes, abolish the police. I want a candidate who will stand up and say exactly what that means. Walter Wallace Jr. is dead for no good reason. His family is mourning for no good reason. And how many times do we have to see this? And how many times are so-called liberals, so-called progressives going to stand up and mealy-mouth apologize for this stuff? The right-wing fascists are going to take advantage of these situations and politicize it. Stand right up and tell the truth. Don't back off. Abolish the police. That's exactly what I mean. Take away their guns and completely reimagine and retool public safety. Burn this thing to the ground and start over. And I hope to God this does not change the results in Pennsylvania, along with Wisconsin, probably the two most important states in this election. If all of a sudden a bunch of white Philly suburbans get up in arms and they buy this claptrap from the fascist in chief, and all of a sudden they say, oh, we got to get out to the polls and stop these Democrat enablers, that's going to be a problem right there. That's going to be a very big problem. The Orange Menace flew the thin blue line flag at his recent Wisconsin rally. No American flag. No, didn't fly the American flag. Flew the anti-Black Lives Matter flag. The Blue Lives Matter flag. Whatever you want to call it. I am not a namby-pamby, capital L liberal, who's going to fawn all over the police and say how much I love them. I don't. It's a hideous, insidious, cruel, lethal system that needs to be dismantled and abolished. I'm tired of the apologies. And that damn thin blue line flag, I read the other day the guy who designed it, I forget his name. It was a local thing at first, and it was meant to be a positive symbol in support of police and all the good work they do. And maybe for about a day and a half, that was the case. But symbols are what they represent. And that blue line flag immediately became a symbol for anti-Black Lives Matter. It flies in opposition to the notion that Black Lives Matter. The designer himself said, as you know, it's black and white stripes rather than red, white, and blue, right? It's black and white stripes, and right in the middle is a blue stripe. And the designer himself said that the lines above the blue line represent the good people, people who need to be protected. The lines below the blue line mean the bad guys, the criminals. And that thin blue line in the middle is protecting the good folks. Even if you try to put the most positive spin on that possible, it's still just disgusting and despicable. It divides Americans into two camps, the good guys and the bad guys. And apparently, Walter Wallace Jr. was on the bottom side of that line. He was one of the bad guys, a person who suffered from mental health issues and whose family asked for help. We're dividing Americans into two camps, divided by the thin blue line. And Walter Wallace Jr. is on the wrong side of that line, as is every person who stepped foot on the streets of Philadelphia last night. Every protester, every mother, every father, every brother, every sister who's had enough and hit the streets last night are now on the bottom half of that flag. They're the bad guys. F that flag. F the police. I've had it. And if the White House is able to take advantage of this poor man and his family to win votes for their fascist regime in the suburbs of Philadelphia, God help us all. So, yeah, everybody who hit the streets last night, the last couple nights in Philadelphia, go out and vote today if you haven't voted yet. You guys, I mean, you are it. You hold the key. Cities like Philadelphia, Detroit, my own Milwaukee, right here. I'm just a couple blocks away from Harambee and the North Side. You guys got to vote. This thing is in your hands. You guys turn out. These are the neighborhoods. These are the exact neighborhoods we need to turn out in Philly, in Detroit, in Milwaukee, in Charlotte, in Miami. Come on, you guys. Well, deja vu all over again. It's our deja vu show today because the pandemic is raging. Record high cases, record high hospitalizations, record high daily deaths. Coming to you from the River West neighborhood here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the greatest neighborhood in the world. Wisconsin still right at or near the top of the list. We are raging to all-time highs. I think I saw the number 63 yesterday. 63 deaths, an all-time high. Shattered the record of 48 that we had just last week, a couple days ago. My social media friend Tracy asks, if there was a mass shooting and 48 Wisconsinites died, would you care? Why does it matter less if it's COVID-19? And Republican inaction and prevention of public safety measures. Yeah, 48 was the record when Tracy wrote that. Now 63 is the daily record. And who knows where it's going to go from here? So I guess I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. You probably heard about the recent study that was released. 130,000, and these numbers just are growing every day. This was from, let's see, this is already like a week old. So, jump the numbers again. Study from Columbia. Researchers at Columbia University estimate that between 130,000 and 210,000 deaths from coronavirus in the U.S. could have been avoided, placing much of the blame for those deaths on the abject failure of the Orange Menace administration. That's according to, I'm reading Truth Out right now, but this was everywhere, this Columbia report. Yeah, a couple of 100,000 dead, and who knows how many more to come as a direct result of the callous inaction of this administration. We always ask, are they evil or are they stupid? They're not mutually exclusive. They're both. If they could have figured this out, if they had the competence to figure this out, they probably would have, but they didn't. And since they didn't, they said, well, we just don't care. So they're evil and stupid. They're not mutually exclusive. They literally don't care if thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people die unnecessarily. If hundreds of thousands of families have to grieve, they literally don't care. They're fine with it. Who cares? People who die, they're old, they're weak. We don't care. Let them die. It's on the national level, it's on the state level here in my beloved Wisconsin. Poor old Governor Evers. Man, just trying to do what he can, but he's so weak. He's never been a real forceful guy anyway. But the gerrymandered state legislature here has made him completely impotent. There's nothing he can do. And they refuse to do anything. They've literally done nothing. Except when Evers tries to do something, they take him to court, they block it. And in our Deja Vu All Over Again theme today, the back and forth on the bars and restaurants. Oh, can we finish with this? Have we had enough of this conversation? For my friends around the country and around the world who don't know about the Wisconsin Tavern League, yeah, we've got something here called the Wisconsin Tavern League. It's the trade association here for basically venues that serve liquor, bars and restaurants. And they fought the smoking bans, tougher laws regarding drunk driving. They're kind of our own personal NRA. They're like the National Rifle Association. They're on the wrong side of every issue. All they care about is their members and their liquor sales. And so now, of course, they're at the forefront of fighting any reasonable regulation regarding COVID and public spaces. So they're very powerful. They're very, very powerful in this state. And they've got the gerrymandered legislature by the short hairs. The governor tries to do anything, they take him to court. And they have a lot of support from Wisconsinites. I'm always trying to defend my state here. I was just talking to my son the other day. He lives out in California. Explaining to him that like 75% of us here in Wisconsin are decent, sane, rational people. And we understand what needs to be done. But 25 to 30% are out of their mind wackos, and they hold all the power because we are the worst gerrymandered state in the country. The Republicans hold a majority in the state legislature, even though they have a minority of voters because of gerrymandering. Way more Democratic voters. Here, I looked up the numbers. In the Senate, 19 Republicans, 14 Democrats. In the Assembly, 63 Republicans, 35 Democrats. Even though those very numbers, when it comes to voters, are practically reversed. So that small percentage of the anti-maskers, the anti-science, the keep everything open, who cares if grandma dies? Who cares if old people and weak people die? I want my freedom. That small minority has all the power in this state. And the Tavern League is right in line with all of that. And at this point, ask any health professional. There is no safe number of people you can put into a bar or restaurant right now. The way this thing is raging, 50% capacity, 25% capacity, I don't care. There's no safe number. I've complained about this before. The local news will give the report, an all-time record high of people dying. Oh, they're opening up more beds at State Fair Park for overflow of COVID patients. New record number of cases. And then right on the heels of that report, now let's go to our We're Open segment. Yes, we're open, Milwaukee. And they go down and they do a 5-minute segment on some damn little taco place, inviting everybody to come on down. Or some bar. Yeah, we got live music every Wednesday night and Thursday night. Come on down, everybody. in the very same newscast with just like bumper to bumper right next to each other. They got these horrific stories about death and dying and suffering. And then they put on a big smile and they kick it over to the other reporter and say, "We're open, Milwaukee." I like to say it's never too late to do the right thing. But I'm not even sure that's true anymore. It might be too late to do the right thing because too many people have got it in their head that there's nothing we can do. We've known for quite a while that the White House wasn't going to do anything about it, except lie. And now they don't even bother lying anymore. We all saw over the weekend how White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said on CNN, well, we're not going to control the pandemic. We can't control it. We just don't care. But that idea has been so deeply embedded into that 25-30% of the population, not only in my state, but across the country, that the rest of us are just held hostage by this minority, and they have all the power. If they're just going to flaunt every policy, every regulation, every law, every good practice, we're helpless to do anything about it unless we want to try to put them all in jail. So I used to say it's never too late to do the right thing, but it might be too late to do the right thing. None of this needed to happen. No business needed to close permanently. Nobody had to fear losing their livelihood, losing their business. And I went back, I listened to one of our shows from early April 3rd. We were talking about the same thing. We knew early in this process. We knew about masks. We knew about social distancing. There were still things we needed to learn about the aerosols and all of that, but we were learning quickly. And by April 3rd, that's the show I listened to yesterday, because I was curious just to go back and see, now, what did we know? Yeah, we knew all of this. And people were yelling at the time. I was yelling at the time. Just shut the mother down. Not one single person needed to lose their job. Just send them home until this thing is over. Pay them. There's plenty of money. Don't let people tell you there's no money. There's plenty of money. This scarcity of money, scarcity of resources is the biggest lie of all. It's the biggest myth we've all bought into. No business needed to shutter forever. They needed to shut down, yes, but no one should have lost a business. Nobody needed to lose a business. Everybody just go home. We'll pay you. If you own a business, just lock it up. When this thing is over, just go in, dust off the equipment, and start her up again. Nobody had to lose a business. Nobody had to lose a job. The essential work that had to get done, and again, I'm repeating what I said at the very, very early stages, at the very first stages of this thing. Not one single person should be forced to work in a pandemic. All work should be voluntary. You get paid. In fact, you get paid plenty, hazard pay. And then the jobs that needed to get done, people in healthcare, people keeping the lights on, growing, distributing, and selling food, actual essentials here. People have gone off to war. They've been deployed several times. They've sacrificed for months and years at a time to fight for this country. We couldn't go home and watch TV and get paid for it. We couldn't. That was too much of a sacrifice. You know damn well that all the essential work would get done, right? Because Americans are good people, by and large. We would have had all the essential work we needed. This was a big, big job, but it actually really wasn't that complicated. State governments, the federal government, the U.S. military, these are really big, complex entities. They can get it done. Resources, logistics. In the right hands, this should not have been the problem that it's been. We could have saved a couple of 100,000 lives. And now we've passed 250,000 dead and who knows how many more. It's probably safe to say it's going to at least double. By the time we get a vaccine or a couple of vaccines, they get approved, they get distributed. A whole bunch of people aren't going to want to take it. We got another year of this, you guys. It didn't have to be this way. It did not have to be this way. And it's completely and entirely unnatural. Pandemic prevention is something we have to think about right now. We can't put that off anymore. I mean, that's a big picture item, but we can't ignore it. It's a very fundamental issue. It goes to the very heart of how humans interact with the non-human animal world. But again, it's not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. These are things we know. People like Jane Goodall, people like David Attenborough, and those are just the big names. There's so many great voices we need to hear. But that's big picture. Once this pandemic was unleashed, we needed to get real practical real quick. And there were lots of great voices there too, but we just weren't listening. And most of all, at the real heart of this problem is the fact that we are chained to money. We're chained to profit. Our hands are tied behind our backs. We cannot make a move unless it serves the interest of capital. And as long as that's the case, we are not going to get out from under this thing without doubling or tripling our current death count, without completely devastating healthcare systems and the absolute heroes trying to make a go of it. Doctors, nurses, staff. What we're putting these people through, what we're putting the families through. Maybe it's not too late to do the right thing, but we got to put the hammer down on this thing. And we might have to put the hammer down on the small minority of people who up until now have been calling the shots. 25 to 30% of us have made this problem 1,000-fold worse than it needed to be. And unless and until they get in line, there may come a time when we have to just stop asking and start enforcing, because they literally don't care if another 250,000 people die. And the social scientists can preach all they want about us all getting along. Screw it. I'm not going to get along with Nazis and fascists and death cults and people who think their little dice game at the local bar is more important than people dying by the thousands. Especially when it's not that hard. We know, science tells us that masks and distancing can save hundreds of thousands of lives. The simple act of wearing a mask and keeping your distance, neither of which happen in bars and restaurants, which of course brings us back to money. So tired of that excuse. There's plenty of money out there, plenty of resources. Scarcity is a lie. The fact that we have to make incomes is a lie. It's all a lie. None of it's true. We don't have to make widgets. All right. Well, obviously none of this happens if the Orange Menace is reelected. None of it. It's just pretty much over. Just go ahead and sign the death warrant for another 500,000 people. And that's not even to mention all the other items on the fascist agenda. So don't forget to vote if you haven't voted yet. There's early voting. It's happening today. Go out and vote today. It's not too late. We're still in the middle of this thing. So vote, everybody. Vote. Especially my city pals, my comrades in Pittsburgh, in Philly, in Detroit, in Milwaukee. Get out there. All right. I love you. This is The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. Talk to you tomorrow.